Cool. So I just want to say thank you, Vivian. It's such a pleasure to have you, your awesome brand, and everything you want to share with us today to be on Model Breakers. I've been always looking forward to our conversations and such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Charlene. As Charlene mentioned, my name is Vivian, otherwise known as Your Rich BFF on TikTok and as well as other social platforms. But I'm really excited to talk to you guys a little bit more today about how I grew up, what led me to start Your Rich BFF, and also my transition from Wall Street to tech.
Nice. I love that. So a lot of things, but I want to start from the very beginning. So tell me more about your family, your parents, and how it's like to growing up in the household.
Yeah, absolutely. I, like many other children of immigrants, I'm a first generation Chinese immigrant. My parents came to the US from China in their early 20s. And when I was very young, life was really tough for my parents. They didn't so much show it. I never really felt it, but I think money in particular was a big concern. I was an only child. Both of my parents worked. They were working full time. And I think, saving and budgeting was always something that they thought about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I remember getting into arguments with my dad in particular during my teen years, wanting to get a pair of jeans from PacSun and him being like, these are too expensive. What are you doing? You're constantly buying clothes. It wasn't really until high school or college when my parents had come to some pretty nice peaks in their own careers where it felt like money was a lot more free flowing and it wasn't as big of a thing in the forefront of their minds.
Right. But it has been somewhat 15 to 16 years for you to be in that budgeting, saving mindset, right?
Yeah. Growing up with super frugal parents, I have always been of the saver mindset. I'm 27 now and I still wash Ziploc bags. That's weird.
Wow. I love that. That would be a good TikTok, by the way.
Yeah.
Or you maybe already have it already.
No, I reuse Ziploc bags, but and as silly as that sounds, I think a lot of Asian parents do something similar. Dad is like a thermostat hawk because he wants to keep that cooling bill down, or they keep a money tree in their living room. They have a plastic bag in their kitchen filled with other plastic bags. God forbid we ever throw anything away.
That is very familiar, I have to say.
Yeah, it's very familiar. When many non-immigrant children are born in America, raised in America, money isn't something they start really thinking about until they're, teens, when they want to start dating or going out with friends and spending money. Whereas even as an elementary schooler, I was picking up change off of the sidewalks when I saw it and so excited. And I think that just has a lot to do with my upbringing.
How did that shifted when you were in high school, when your parents began to shift from a saving to, as you said, free-flowing abundance mindset? Has that changed the way they raise you, or what they earned and what they do is still quite different?
Yeah. So I think my parents, even now in retirement, they have, multiple seven figures left to live on. They'll be fine. They have earned quite a lot of money in their life. They are still super frugal. But I will say in high school, going to college in particular, there were things my dad was never going to let me spend money on. And ripped jeans was one of them. But I was very fortunate in that, I didn't come out of school with student debt because my parents had saved and invested so much money so that I could go to college. And Chicago in particular, where I went to school, is one of the most expensive places in the country to send your kid. So I think in high school in particular, when my peers who their first cars were BMWs or Mercedes were considering going to community college because their parents couldn't help them pay for school, me in my, broken down Honda didn't have to worry about that. My parents' demeanor was, if you can get in, we'll help you pay for it.
Yeah. The priorities is different, right?
Correct. The priorities were very, very different. And for them, spending $25 on a pair of ripped jeans was a massive waste, but a school with $250,000 sticker price was good value.
It's almost like they see that as investment and the other one is just spending, right? And they're like, well, spending is some cost, let's invest more in this mutual fund in some cases, especially liberal arts. But
exactly.
What are other expectations they had for you when you grew up besides money, right? And how did you react to those? Like, do you usually follow them as you do with your budgeting and saving, or do you usually run against them?
So a little bit of both. Growing up, I played by my parents' rules. I always had very good grades. I was a very good student. And with that, I felt like I could play by their rules because they were always my set of rules too. Like I've always loved school. Whereas for other stuff like money and budgeting, I resented them a lot because I never got to have those cool things that some of my peers did. And I didn't have the fancy car to drive to school. And like what I did feel over time is now, especially now that I'm older and out of their house, is that even as much as I pushed back and disagreed with them and we got into fights about it, as an adult now in my own life, I see myself emulating them and I'm like, what the heck? I'm turning into my parents.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think I push back pretty hard on certain aspects.
And I assume there is some conflict when you push back. Yeah, if there is a moment that was the most memorable between you and your parents, what happened?
Yeah, I think, you know, outside of school, which we definitely agreed on, like I wanted to be a normal, cool American teen. I wanted to hang out with my friends. I wanted to go to sleepovers. I wanted to go to the movies. I wanted to go out to eat and all this stuff. Obviously, I was, you know, running up their credit card bill. And it came to a head one time when I got into a pretty big fight with my parents. And, you know, you're Chinese, so you know there's this phrase called 应该, meaning like obligation or you should.
Right.
And my parents have always kind of been of the mindset like you should stay at home and spend time with your parents. There's an obligation for you to be a good Chinese daughter. And for a really long time, I felt like I did not fit that mold at all because when you imagine like this good Chinese daughter, you're picturing someone who's petite, small, docile, soft-spoken, incredibly cerebral. And instead you have me who is like 2 standard deviations just in size above the average Asian woman. And also I'm loud, I'm brazen, I'm bold, you know, I've always wanted to pursue my own interests and passions. Whereas like my parents thought of like, oh, well, we hope our kid becomes like a doctor or a lawyer, like never really panned out.
Yeah. And when is the moment they realize that you're not going to be their model minority or their molded daughter?
I mean, I feel like the fights about this continued on as I got older, but I'm pretty sure even early on, they knew I was like kind of a troubled child.
Yeah, but you're the only child too.
Yeah, and which was so unfortunate, right? Because all the attention's on you.
Curious if growing up, do you have any idea of like who you want to be, what you want to do growing up? Like besides not what your parents say, like anything else?
Yeah, I don't think I necessarily had a specific person, somebody that I was shooting to be, but I knew I wanted to be really successful, with that being defined many different ways. I knew I wanted to be rich because I had seen my parents like, you know, have discussions and have arguments over money. I just like never wanted it to be a problem in my life. And then I grew up in a very, very white town. I knew I wanted to get out of there. When I was even applying to colleges, I like got into places like Georgetown and the University of Maryland. And I was like, absolutely not. I will not be going anywhere within like a 3-state radius of my parents. They need to get on a plane to come see me. Like, I just wanted to run away. And like, I knew I like had outgrown where I grew up. And I wanted to be bigger. I wanted to do more. I just had bigger dreams, I think, than a lot of the people that like were surrounding me.
Yeah. And it sounds like you mentioned you went eventually the first step is in Wall Street, right? How did that, I mean, being successful and rich kind of like lead you over there probably?
Yeah.
Yeah. How tell us a bit more about the path you took from Chicago to the first job in Wall Street.
Yeah. So being at the University of Chicago, it was like a rude awakening. At my high school, I was the smartest person in the class, always. But you get to Chicago and all of a sudden you're sitting next to someone who's a published author. You're sitting next to someone who's won Math Olympiad globally 4 times. And you suddenly don't feel very smart. But, you know, I was still a good student. You know, UChicago in particular has a very strong economics program. It's a big, big feeder school for Wall Street. You know, I was fortunate enough to be in a couple student organizations, learn about business, learn about Wall Street. After school, that's what I wanted to do for my first job. I interviewed, I got the seat. I interned for a summer as an equities trader, ended up getting the full-time job. So that's how I ended up on Wall Street. It's there I met my mentor, who is another Asian woman. She's the only other Asian woman I had met in my life up to that point that wasn't the model Asian woman. She was bold. She was the only other female trader on the desk. She instilled fear in these other male traders' eyes because they knew she was smart. They knew she was strong. She was just like so good at everything. And I was like, I want to be just like her.
Yeah.
And I think that was like the first taste of like, this can be my future too. And I very much wanted to learn as much as I could, make as much money as I could, and just emulate, that good example that was set for me.
Yeah. Being bold, being smart, being so powerful that other people could not take you seriously, right? And
right, exactly.
How was that? Assuming you've been there and eventually left, right? How did you? Yeah. How was that?
Yeah, I think, I've obviously left Wall Street since, but I learned more than I can even like say thank you for. I feel like it has really, really instilled like a work ethic in me that, I was always a pretty decent, hardworking person, but Wall Street's like another beast. You're working 14 hours a day, and you better be ready to do that. I learned so much, but also I felt like every day was a new learning opportunity. And by the end, I could visibly tell that I was able to do things that I wasn't able to at the beginning, which made me feel like I had grown. There were sales guys at the beginning who were like not confident in having the new girl run the order, but all of a sudden by the end, they're not even asking my boss for help. They're just like, oh, just send it to Viv. And that really, really gives you a confidence boost that someone is entrusting you with something so important.
And it sounds like you were working 14 hours a day. You're so busy that you couldn't even have time to be afraid of what you're being assigned to, right? You're just basically doing. And you proved yourself because you don't have time to be afraid of.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. And of course, in every job and every learning experience, there are things that happen better than others, but you learn iteration after iteration. And at a certain point, it becomes second nature.
And how has that shifted your money nature or like how you perceive, since it's from budgeting, saving to like, I don't know, millions and billions of dollars moving like in seconds and milliseconds, right? How has that changed your worldview?
Not so much changed my worldview, because I think I was always aware that there were millions and billions swirling around from institutional investors. But I will say, being around people that were making that much money, I was starting to learn about personal finance topics that like my parents could not teach me. I just like remember like vividly one time, my manager's manager gave me some money in the morning. Why don't you run out? Like, do you mind running out and like grabbing us all some like smoothies for breakfast since there's nothing going on here? And like, I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? Like, I go out, I grab these smoothies and I come back and I have like $2 and change that like left over. And I tried to give it back to him and he was like, just keep it. And I was like, what? You don't want your money back? And he was like, no, it's no biggie. That's when I knew. I was like, people think about spending money very differently, and they spend how they want. They give generously, and they're able to because they still have their money working for them in other respects.
Right. And have you ever brought those learnings back to your family? Or have you ever, how those conversations like?
Yeah, I've definitely tried to have those conversations with my family. I'm a big proponent of having a financial plan, but it's admittedly been harder than I would like. My parents have done very, very well for themselves in the market just because while they were getting older, like it was a 10-year bull market. So they're not super keen to listen to me, but I do think that I have flagged a few good things, such as talking to a financial advisor to make sure retirement's going to go well, and things that they may have not thought of before. So it's been really helpful.
That's amazing. And what made you eventually switch from the Wall Street to the tech world?
Yeah, so I loved my manager, loved the work I was doing. I felt like I was learning a bunch. Everything was awesome. There was a switch in the head of the desk, and the entire environment changed.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I had it wasn't the team that I had worked with on my internship. It wasn't the team that I had signed on to work with. The vibe on the desk was horrible. I was going home like unhappy every single day. That's not the life I want. And I moved into tech because it promised a better work-life balance,
Yeah.
and in particular into sales, because that if I took a bet on myself and I performed, I would be able to make a lot more money, because it would be like an eat what you kill mentality versus on Wall Street, you're often paid based on factors you can't control.
Right. I love the conviction you had after the wake up call. What?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
actually, when I went to my job after Wall Street, I took a pay cut in terms of salary, because they weren't going to be able to match my salary, but they were like, you have ability to earn more if you sell.
Yeah. I love that. And I think it's also that moment when you really trust that you can handle that. And no matter what that initial offer was. And tell me more about how that transitioned to Your Rich BFF. Like, when did you start that? What inspired you to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of like what inspired it, it was more so constantly having friends ask to, like, hey, like, what are you doing with your 401k? What are you doing with your HSA? And it got to a point where I was like, you can like refer to my finance TikTok, but I actually started a finance TikTok.
Yeah.
Also because I was a user of TikTok. I was seeing some stuff come up on my For You page that seemed super sketchy. It was like,
Mm.
please YOLO your stimulus check into Tesla calls. And I'm like, maybe we don't do that, because that's not a good play for the vast majority of people who can't handle that kind of risk. So personally, I thought that by providing financial literacy that was legitimate and not basically gambling, I could help a lot of people. And turns out a lot more people were interested than I thought they would be.
Through that, it's almost like you found a weird situation you find yourself in, like really trashy talk, and then you can bring in your credibility to help your friends and also the internet friends you have made sense to dive that and dive into the personal finance, personal literacy, right? I assume that's a very fun journey. But what are some of the moments, either of transition, of challenge, came across as you build your brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a really, really poignant New York Times article that recently came out that creators are, developing mental health issues
Yeah.
because they are so focused on creating viral content.
Mm-hmm.
And I have had multiple videos with over 1 million views, and that's awesome. But what people don't realize is that any video that you put up that doesn't go viral, it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And you feel bad, and you're like, oh, well, I guess people didn't like this. And if you spend a lot of time on it in particular, like, it feels like almost a slight against you. But you know learning how the algo changes and what type of content is prioritized, I think is all part of the creator journey. And I'm having a good time so far. Right now, it's just a fun side hustle, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, and you talk about more of the posting expectations, like the reach out, right? The other part people don't realize is that as a creator, there's really any holidays or break you could make for
No.
yourself, right? So how, and I mean, it sounds like you started your career in sort of that very high intensity, high effort stage, transition into a good work-life balance one, maybe not awesome, but like good enough. And now taking on the side hustle, which is kind of like tilting back to the little bit burnout stage. Like, how do you manage your energy? How do you see that going forward?
Yeah, that's a super, super good question. In reality, not well. Like, I'm working full time still, and then I do TikTok stuff at night and on weekends. I found it helpful to batch create content on weekends and then distribute it across the week. But to your point, it's like another job, like another part-time job that you're taking on. And I'm much busier now than I was last year.
Yeah.
And, I think if it wasn't something that was fun for me and that I was passionate about, I would have given up much longer ago. Like, I wouldn't keep doing this. but I get comments that are like, I opened up a Roth IRA because of you. Like, I moved my money from a savings account to a high yield savings account. And just knowing that like there's an impact being made on real people, real lives, like is nice, and it keeps you going.
Yeah. So it's almost like that reward or whatever you build in, like the ROI is a lot bigger because of the platform and the scale you have built. So that has been sustaining the energy onwards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now that it started with sort of like a media presence, right? Where do you see it going, and what kind of impact would you like to have in your audience?
Yeah, I'd love, the whole mission statement of like Your Rich BFF is like talking to people about finance like a close best friend. Like,
Yeah.
no judgment. Like, you can still get your coffee if you want it in the morning, $5, whatever. I hope it becomes a resource outside of just TikTok that people can use when they Google something and it all looks really overwhelming, they can't understand it, they can come to Your Rich BFF and have that be an easy, digestible way to kind of get their footing and move towards a solution that works for them.
Yeah. And it's almost like something for a younger self who didn't grow up in that personal finance like a world, but know that you can help her and many other people like her to get that investment or anything started early on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting because before my current career, I would say I'm really interested in finance, and I think it's partially because of the same reason. I wouldn't say my mom and my dad has the opposite money mindset. My dad is like what you said, very generous, like never take changes, like give it to the people around him, people love him. My mom is like save every plastic bag, like hand wash it all the times, like always bring, like always save all the boxes of gift she received, like as if they can be sold or it's reused multiple times. And it's that contrast that made me realize how different the mindset could have been, and study like the investment and personal finance, and even like a career in the industry for a while, and then no longer not anymore. But yeah, it's a deja vu to some extent.
Totally. And I think it's a shared experience that a lot of immigrant children have, just because there was such a scarcity mindset, and whether that mindset changed or not depending on each person's family situation is to be seen, but like a lot of us grew up with that like survival mode.
Yeah. And I think it's part, I don't know how much of that is intergenerational passed down, but I think another part is seeing the people you think of as role models or like as people you admire doing the same thing. You're like, wait, should I model after them or not? So that's the constant push and pull. I think taking a step further, now that you have a successful career and in the job you love and sales, working on your media presence on TikTok and beyond, what kind of message would you like to leave with the audience, especially people who are like you maybe a year or two ago?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really, really important to be true to yourself. I think don't be afraid to pursue a passion just because your parents said it wasn't going to be a good option for you. Whether that means you have to moonlight it and do it in your free time or whatever, like, don't be afraid to pursue a passion, because I feel like it can bring a lot of happiness that you may not be able to get from other points.
Yeah.
And then additionally, like in terms of like much younger, like in high school, like don't be worried about being a nerd or being the ugly duckling or whatever. Smart, successful, nerdy people end up ruling the world. And I'm really, really proud that even though I was this weird, awkward, pimply kid in high school, I've been able to grow into someone who is intelligent, by all definitions of the word, like self-made, and have built a brand for myself.
And for a follow-up question, you kind of alluded to the definition of success, and there are many definitions, right? What is yours now?
Yeah, I think my definition of success in part has to do with feeling really, really financially secure. And a big part of that is just my upbringing. But in addition to that, I think the big marker of success is being able to wake up every single day and do something that you love.
Yeah.
And I am very fortunate in that I am able to say that. You know, I love my job, my day job. I love my TikTok brand that is growing into a bigger media brand. And I'm able to kind of live without having to ask permission or get approval from anybody else. And I think that's pretty successful.
Yeah, I love I mean, 3 parts, right? Feeling financially secure, which is for healing your younger self. The middle part, waking up, feeling passionate, as you said, the career, the TikTok, everything that comes afterwards, but also no longer having to have the permission slips, right? You basically get to do everything you want, and your career supports that as well.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
I love that. And if people want to learn more about you, either the work you're doing, how to follow you and get in touch, what would be the best way?
Yeah, you can check me out as at Your Rich BFF on TikTok. And we will actually be launching our website, yourrichbff.com, in the coming days. So that'll be out really, really soon.
So by the time everyone who listens to this, that is all in the link in bio. There's the website, there's a TikTok, and every links that you could find Vivian on. That's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for this conversation. I'm really, really fortunate to have you to come on and share the financial insights and a bit more about what's next on your platform that people could check out. And this is, I think, something everyone needs, especially the earlier the better, but really any stage of life is not too late. So please go check out Vivian's work on TikTok, on website, and stay tuned for the next Model Breaker season. Thanks, everyone.